Hello and welcome back everyone. So in this video we will look at how to build a simple project with Hardhat and what do we get when we start a simple project. Before starting and downloading the project we need to ensure that we have two things. First of all is Node and secondly is Git. So if you can go in your terminal and do git dash dash version, it will tell you if you have Git installed. For me, I don't have Node installed, so it will give me an error. So you can go on your downloads page and then choose whatever operating system that you're using. I'm using Windows, so I just downloaded a Windows installer and we can install the files. So I'll install. So once that's installed, we can come back in a terminal and check the version. Yeah, so we needed to restart the terminal. So once we did that, we have Node installed in our terminal. So now I'll just go into a directory and I'll make a new folder, enter test hardware, and if you go on their documentation, then first needed to do npm init, and I'll just choose the default values. So this will take a few minutes and we'll be right back once it's done. So a local dependency of Hardhat is installed now. What we can do is check if it's installed properly. So we'll do npx Hardhat and this menu appears. So let's go in here and we'll create a simple project. Yes, yes, I want to add get ignore. No. So over here it will ask you that you need to install some other dependencies. So let's open our project first. So if we go in a terminal, I'm using VS Code, so I can open it using this. So in here we can see that we got one contract. So this is our Solidity contract greeter.solve. It's a simple contract which we'll look into how this thing works. And then we have a simple script that will deploy this contract on the blockchain. And then we have a test for it. So so this is a best practice. So whatever contract we build, we write a test for it, which tests if it's working how we intend it to. So that because once you deploy the contract on the mainnet, then it can't be taken down. So we want to make sure that our contract is error free once we are doing the final deployment. So now let's take a look how can we use these tests and scripts and how does it work. So over here we see that Hardhat is telling you that you need to install these dependencies. So we will install these dependencies. It will install Waffle, Ethereum, Chai, and Ethers. So it will take a second. So actually that took few minutes. Uh, so once we have that installed, we can check again what are the functions that Hardhat gives us by default. So if you do npx Hardhat, over here we can see that we have few different tasks that we can perform. Npx Hardhat accounts, it will print all the list of the accounts that Hardhat gives us. If we want to compile the code, so compile will compile all the builds all the artifacts, and the three most important one that we will be using most would be npx hardhat node, npx hardhat run, and npx hardhat test. So let's see how we will use all these three functions: node, run, and test. First of all, we can do hardhat compile. So keep a look on the left and see how it will build an artifacts folder for us. These artifacts folder, so we have the artifacts over here. So artifacts are basically our contracts which are written in Solidity is converted into a readable JSON format, which can be used by the front end and which will be used to interact with the blockchain. We will look at how to interact the contracts on the front end in a later video. Now we can do we can run a test, which is over here, which will test the greeter contract. So npx test. So it will deploy and it will test. So it shows over here that okay, one test is passing. So if you have used an assertion library beforehand, so this code would be pretty similar to you, pretty familiar to you. But so the basic structure is we have a describe block. Within that describe block, we have an it function, which is async most of the time, and here the the first line is deploying the contract greeter, and then once that greeter contract is deployed, so greeter contract over here we can see there has a constructor which takes a string. So while deploying the contract, we are passing hello world as the initial string, and once that contract is deployed, we can perform functions using the deployed contract. So over here it's using greeter dot greet. Greet is the function for in the Solidity contract, and we can see that it's comparing the result to hello world. And over here, when we run the test, we see in the terminal that the one test is passing. So this is how tests work in Hardhat. Now let's take a look at another function, run. So we can directly deploy the contract. First of all, we need to make sure a blockchain is running. So the good thing about Hardhat that you can deploy a local blockchain. So first we will do that. Let's cd into our test folder. Let's list all the files, and then we can do npx hardhat node. So this will run a local Ethereum blockchain, and it will give us 20 pre-funded accounts with 1,000 ETH each. So these are just for testing purposes and nothing else. So once the blockchain is deployed, the contract on local blockchain. So we can do npx hardhat run, and then it takes an argument. So a deploy contract is in scripts, sample scripts, and then the second argument is on what network you are deploying this contract. So right now it's a local network, so network localhost. And now if we do that, we'll see that when we ran the local blockchain, when the contract got deployed, the artifacts were registered on the blockchain. So over here, we can see how much gas was used to deploy the contract, which what was the contract address. This contract address and this contract address over here will be the same. The transaction number, and the block number, since this was the first block, so we can see it's block 1, and then we have different things. So this contract address over here is very important because we will use this later on when we are connecting our backend application with the front end. So this is the basic working of how Hardhat framework works, and in the next videos we will link custom contracts, their test for it, and then their deploy scripts. So stay tuned for more. Thank you.